Hello, Facebook! Welcome to Put What Where, Why and How. I am your creative organizing consultant, Mike Raish, and today's topic is having a growth outlook versus a positive outlook. I just want to talk about how sometimes a positive outlook might actually fall short of enhancing your creativity or moving forward and whatnot, versus the growth outlook, which I'll talk a little bit more about. So I put a question out there this week about when a negative outlook might be a good thing, and we had a couple of responses, of which were safety and preparedness, or being prepared, which totally makes sense, because if you fear something or worry about something, then you tend to prepare yourself for it, whether that means emotionally or physically, actually, the apocalypse is coming, so therefore I need to gather all of the food. So these are just reasons why a negative outlook might actually help us. So I actually want to talk about fear a little bit more, because it's a very hot topic, and a lot of people, literally everyone, struggles with fear to some extent. And fear was ingrained in us as human beings so that we don't, get eaten alive and things of that sort. So fear can actually be very, very helpful, and it is helpful across the animal kingdom, because fear causes, as you may know, the fight or flight reaction. So when you are faced with something that might be scary, you either have to decide to conquer it or run away from it. Otherwise, you might be conquered by it, and that's not good. So you have to decide if you're going to overcome it or run away from it. And I wanted to mention, this is in my memory somewhere, but someone talked about courage and how courage is not without fear, but action in spite of fear. So if you have courage, it's not that you don't have fear, it's just that you have the ability to take action even in the face of fear. So the question is, are you running from your problems? I wanted to talk about how we have a lot of negative emotions, like fear, anger, frustration, sadness. All of these negative emotions are happening for a reason. And it all comes down to that same fight or flight kind of thing. Are you having these emotions and then running from your problems? Or are you using these emotions to identify your problems and then have the ability to overcome them? So when we're talking about a positive outlook versus all of these negative, sad emotions, very often if you're in an environment that preaches positivity, sometimes it can become too much. And the positivity means that we're kind of ignoring the negativity, which is also not healthy. So that's where the positive outlook might fall short. We have a bunch of people running around going, oh, but we want to stay positive. But you have other people going around like, but there's a problem here. And then they kind of get shut down because they're being negative. But there's a balance to life. There's positivity and there's negativity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad. That's your perception of the thing. But there is this contrast of productivity and destruction and stuff like that. But there needs to be these emotions, these negative feelings, in order to identify the problems. So when you're feeling these things, it's a very good indication that there's a problem to find, or that you've found it. And that is kind of the first step in the creative process, is finding a problem to solve. So always having a positive outlook might mean that you sweep things under the rug, or you just plaster on a face like you're smiling all the time, even though deep down inside you're suffering. So this is where the positive outlook can fall short. But of course we want to look at things positively, but we also want to consider all aspects of something. So the positive aspects should be something that you look at first in most cases, because those are often ignored as well. If you have a negative mindset, you're just constantly jumping to what's wrong with things. But we don't want to give all of the things wrong all of our attention as well, which is where problem creating kind of comes in. So you have all of these negative emotions that are identifying these problems, but then it becomes too much, and now you're creating problems that don't really exist, or you're creating problems in your own world, and there's really not priority to fix whatever that is. There are bigger fish to fry, or maybe you should be enjoying your time instead of wondering whatever it is, futile thing that you're concerned about. And that's all situational, and you have to play the game. I mean, it's all about balance, that's what I teach, is balance, because there is never anything that's all good or all bad. So when making affirmative judgments or choices or making actions or anything like that, having a growth outlook means that you are considering what's good, what's not, and then trying to fix what's not. It's not always about just concentrating on what's good. Although we should count our blessings and should stay positive, because positivity, biologically releases all the endorphins and all the et ceteras, but we have to be able to handle the negativity as well, which doesn't mean ignore it. That means address it and take care of it and fix it. So that is kind of the difference that I wanted to point out, is that a lot of the positivity culture will actually be stifling because they're snuffing out the problems and burying them, which will eventually reemerge and cause chaos. So you have to have a growth outlook, fixing the things that are not positive, all the while acknowledging the positive things. So you have to acknowledge both sides of the scale in almost everything. But that is the lesson for today, is to stay positive, but also, when appropriate, you need to address the negative and have a growth attitude that you can overcome them. And it's either fight or flight. You're going to either run away from your problems or you're going to tackle them. And it takes courage to tackle, but the aftermath will be much less stressful. Tough choices, easy life. Easy choices, tough life. I think that's a Stoicism quote. All right, well, thanks for joining me, and have a growth attitude. And don't tell depressed people to be happy, because that's not the solution. Peace and love.